a lot of self-coaching depends on the self-leadership skills, right? I don't think they're separate. I think that they are dependent on each other. The better self-leader I am, a better self-coach I become. In a way, because just to put what Smita said in a nutshell, what came up to me was your self-regulation and your self-motivation becomes very important aspects in self-coaching.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're joining in from. I'm Kiva, and welcome to our webinar today on self-coaching and sustainability. So, hope you're all doing well. Before I introduce our guests today, would be great if we can see who all are joining in. Please use the chat box to share with us who you are, where you're joining in from. Good afternoon. As people are sharing, I'd also like to introduce our team member, Merin, who's with us as a chat box moderator. Hello, Merin. Would be nice if you could say hello to everyone. Hello, Joseph. Hello, Manon. And that's Merin for you all. Hi from our guest today, Vinitha. Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Cynthia. Good to see participants from so many different places. Hello, Nagesh. All right, I think as everyone is joining in, I'd like to start off by saying that I'm really excited for the conversation today with our guests, Vinitha and Smita. I've been really lucky. I've had the chance to work with both on a project together and with Smita closely in Coacharya. So lovely to have you here, and thank you so much for joining in. Vinitha is the founder and CEO of Blue Purple Consulting. It's focused on coaching and OD consulting and agile transformation. Both Vinitha and Smita are PCC coaches, and Vinitha also is a certified agile, has a certification on coaching agile teams and enterprise transformation, doing a number of different exciting projects with mentoring startups and also goals related to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Smita is, as I think many of you know, she's here from Coacharya. Smita wears multiple hats in Coacharya. She's the Director of Client Services and a facilitator at Coacharya, and she's also a PCC coach. So welcome, Smita. Welcome, Vinitha. Lovely to have you both here today. So
thank you, Kiva.
So our conversation today is on sustainability, and it's on self-coaching and sustainability. So I think throughout the month, we've been exploring what sustainability is and what sustainability means to different facilitators. And I think I've been really, really curious to know a little bit about self-coaching and how that fits into the sustainability space. Given that whenever we think of times, these days, everybody says, I'm so stressed, I'm so tired, I'm stretched, I have so much going on. Everybody has so much going on, and people are aware of the challenges that they're facing. I think most of us are struggling to understand how to cope with that kind of stress or how to build a sustainable life for ourselves, given so much is happening around us. So I want to actually open it up and maybe hear from you, Vinitha, first on what do you think these challenges are? What do you think comes in the way of us being able to cope with these kind of challenges?
Okay, so being a coach, Kiva, it is always very exciting to see sometimes that there are challenges which we can deal with. I know it's not something which is very normal what we say, right? But I think a lot about these challenges have come to the surface post the pandemic, uh, more evidently, and the struggles have been quite different from what it has been, right, much before. But like someone was telling the other day, coaching is not um, about doing something after something has happened, but it is more of a precautionary nature, right? And in that is where comes the self coaching. When I'm really aware of my the way I am moving, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm doing, the way I'm being, right? All of that. How is that I am able to catch it with a net, and then just see in that net what exactly is going on with me, right? And how is that I can probably take one step forward. Yeah. And the question you asked, I think, who doesn't have challenges? All of us have, right? It becomes either a magnified way of looking at it, or maybe look at it in a um, very progressive way or very growth oriented way, and just look at it and say, hey, okay, this is happening. Is it an opportunity for me, and where does my opportunity lie in moving forward? Because we anyway have to move forward, right? So that's when probably somewhere we probably think that, okay, I can just park myself here, just roll on it, and then see how I'm just stuck with it, right? So we do a lot of negative talk to ourselves at that point in time. What self-coaching would do is remove the what if and say, okay, this is what is happening, and I would like to address it, and what can I do about it, right? So that's what I think. As you spoke about it, that's what came up to me.
Hearing what can I do about it, is something I'm thinking about. Yeah. Smita, what do you think? Like, what are challenges you think we're facing? What do you think comes in the way of us really being able to cope, with these challenges?
Thank you, Kiva, for that question. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be in this space, and wonderful to have you all today for this webinar. Okay, so let me start by sharing a very recent example. And this weekend, me and my husband witnessed our 12-year-old playing a cricket match. And when we arrived at the ground, my son was a bit stunned to see that the opponent is actually under 16. Okay, so they are under 12, and the match that they had to play was with under 16. So these tall, big guys are coming in, and these little children to under 12 are watching them coming. We could see that, something was, that fear was coming up, that anxiety was coming up in them just by seeing that they are under 16 and big guys. Now, my question to my son there was like, what would you do, right? Like now that you're feeling like that, what would you do? And he said, I mean, I have no choice. I'll just go and play. So the point here I'm trying to make is sometimes when we are, with various hats that we wear and with the various roles that we have to do, and we are anxious, we are stressed, in that moment, trusting becomes very difficult. Trusting yourself, knowing, they are practicing cricket for a long time. So just trusting to say that I know the skill, I know how to play. Trusting the coach who selected, out of the 20, 30 players in the club, these 11 players were selected to play with under 16. Of course, they would have seen something in them, right? So I think when we are quite stressed, trust is something which, drops in very easily. And then how Vinitha was saying, right? Like that self-doubt, the self-negative talk that we do. I think all of us are just wanting to be perfectionist in some ways, right? Um, if we on the if we can see ourselves more as work in progress and be open to learning and growing, I think that ways we can definitely help our own selves with the stress and anxiety that it's very human that comes.
Something very interesting that you shared was trust, and how like trust kind of comes in the way. So one is of course the challenge, but one is trusting yourself to be able to overcome that challenge. You know, Vinitha, any thoughts on that? What's coming up for you when you hear that?
No, Smita, when you were talking about trust, as coaches, we always talk about building trust with our clients, right? Building trust with our coachees, with our who we are working with. And I just put the mirror towards me, and I was thinking, how much of a trust am I having for myself, on myself, to myself, what I'm doing, right? Anything of that sort. So, and when you say self-doubt, many names are there for that, right? Can I do it? Can I not do it? Imposter syndrome. So many things are there which we define. But I think everything is rooted probably on that little thing called trust. But it's not so little either, right? It's something which is the foundation of every relationship we call out. But the relationship with your own self is also built on trust. And I think the moment it starts eroding, probably sometimes that's when we really need to get back to our coaching hats and say, how do I just build it back for myself? So that's what came up to me as Smita was talking about it. Yeah.
Relationship with self. So I think we're going to explore that as we move further. And I'd also like to invite all our participants, to use the chat box to maybe share with us certain challenges that you've seen yourself face, and maybe share what are certain things that you have experienced that come in the way of you being able to actually overcome that challenge for you. So as people are sharing what's showing up for them, let's discuss a little about what you just shared right now, Vinitha, on a relationship with yourself. So coming back to our topic today on self-coaching. So how can we connect the two? Like, how do you see that play out in helping an individual to move towards sustainability? How do you see that play out?
So the moment this topic was brought in, right, sustainability has different dimensions. We know that. Some call 3 pillars, some call 4 pillars, right? Let's pick up the 4 pillars. I think very largely, if you talk about it, it is a human element, the sustainability of the human capital in this world. It is also about economical sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. Now, these 4 pillars have again different dimensions we're talking about. Now, self-coaching is very inward, and your sustainability element can be defined the way we want to define for ourselves, right? How we look at it. So self-coaching is, what is actually self-coaching? It is, I would like to just hear from the participants, what is actually self-coaching for you, right? And I mean, we all can define it in different ways for ourselves. But mostly, at least for me, it is more like, what can push me further into the life? What can push me, what can give me momentum towards having fun in life? How do I enjoy myself in a way that I can do it every other day, be joyful, right? So whatever gives me that space is something which I would like to sustain. That's the way I think about sustainability. But for all of us, there are different elements in that. And self-coaching and sustainability, how can you bridge it? It's very given, right? Unless I talk to myself, unless I'm aware of myself, unless I know what is activating certain events for me, I wouldn't be able to pick those elements of what can push me forward. what can take me forward? What are some of the roadblocks we spoke about in the beginning of the conversation? So, and be very comfortable of being very uncomfortable. Right? How can you bring in that comfort within you when it's scary? Like, it may not be easy for us to call out what is imperfection, what is bothering us, what is challenging for us, how much of an improvement we can have in our own selves. But it can be very, very detrimental for us to run away from all of this without addressing those. And leading to a non-sustainable way of living.
Now, what's coming to you as you hear this?
Sure. You know, Jen, in the chat box, she wrote vulnerability, and then I see self-awareness, greater awareness, right? Amit has written greater awareness. So while I was prepping up for this webinar, I was just checking in with myself to see what am I feeling right now. Okay, and the answer was I'm feeling nervous. So I want to check with all of you present here, if you can in the chat box, just share when you feel nervous, what do you do? Just pause for a second to see what responses come in the chat box. When you feel nervous, what do you do? Okay, breathe, breath.
Oh.
Be very
Take a deep
interested
breath.
to know what does that breath do to you.
Yeah, clap hands. Deep breathing, think positive. Redirect nervous energy. Beautiful. Be grounded. Thank you so much for all the sharing here in the box, chat box. Visualize something joyful. Wonderful. So that is exactly, Kiva, to your question about what's the connection between self-coaching and sustainability. There has to be an awareness, right? I need to know about myself as to what am I going through right now. After having known that, what am I doing to develop myself? Right now, when I shared with all of you that I am feeling nervous, I'm actually looking for an extended support from all of you here. That is my way to develop myself and to be sustainable. Right? All the feelings that we go through are human. So that's how I would like to say that, to know about yourself and to put and take support and to take action. Right? Sustainability means you need to take some action. Awareness won't alone help you in sustainability.
Wonderful, Smita. And yeah, I think we're all sailing the same boat and we are all with you in this, a little nervous and still accepting and exploring. And it was really interesting for me to see, like on the chat box, a lot of people had written, breathe, deep breathing, as a mechanism or a system that people have developed for themselves. So what I'm wondering is, I heard you speak about self-awareness, Smita, and becoming aware of what you're experiencing. So my question is that at times, and I've also experienced this, so I've seen it play out around me. When people are experiencing any kind of stress or anxiety or worry, I think at times it could also be something which is completely out of their awareness, that something is actually going on. It's like you're just in that mode of, functioning day to day, completing your tasks. So, you're in just that flow without having hit the brakes to even have this realization. So how do you think, like, what's the role that you think self-coaching plays in getting that process started firstly, and then also helping in building that mechanism, like a lot of people said, breathing or listening to music? Like, how do you first recognize to get to a place where you know that the system works for you?
So, I think I can share about my own self. It's like if there is some discomfort, right? Like if that's the trigger. So right now, with my example about there is a feeling which is going on, which is making me a little uncomfortable, right? Like maybe it's anxiousness, maybe it is stress. There is this point where I need to talk to myself to say, pause. Can I just hold here? And always remembering this, that what we think, right? And particularly what we think about our own selves influences how we will perceive the world around. And then how do we experience that world? So our thoughts and our perceptions are resulting that emotions, and it is shaping actually our reality then. So I think, having that coaching mindset, I'm just linking it to, the ICF core competency, which is on coaching mindset. How do we be, open, and the self-talk that we do is so, it plays a crucial role. Like with every breath, in every moment we are doing that self-talk. When we say self-coaching, it really looks like somebody needs to go through the whole ICF process and learn the structured way of coaching, all that. But for everybody else who is not even a coach, that self-talk is nothing but self-coaching.
Very, very, very interesting. And I think as you were sharing, I was thinking about the times that the negative stories that come up so easily, like even before, I mean, when the webinar was about to start, it had been raining heavily here today. And my first thought was, oh my God, I hope the internet doesn't go off. And if it goes off, then what? So like just a chain of negative thoughts, one after another. And so it's very, very interesting. Vinitha, your thoughts, I think Smita touched upon self-talk, which is something very, very interesting. What do you think? Like, how would you go about this?
So, Smita brought out an interesting point of people who are not coaches, right? Who do not know what coaching is all about in a very structured manner. They can self-coach too. How? Self-talk, right? A little perspective, what I feel there can be added is a lot of self-coaching depends on the self-leadership skills, right? I don't think they're separate. I think that they are dependent on each other. The better self-leader I am, a better self-coach I become. In a way, because, just to put what Smita said in a nutshell, what came up to me was your self-regulation and your self-motivation becomes very important aspects in self-coaching, right? Just like what you said, it has been raining and there's so many negative things coming into my mind. Is the internet going to be choppy? Is it something which I can control? So many, right? Where do you stop? And I think self-leadership skills, how much you have accessed that for yourself, becomes very key there in bringing in self-regulation, and then switch on to a self-motivation mode where I can just say, okay, it has been raining. If it's choppy, it's choppy. What do we do? How much of it is under my control, right? So self-talk can also be very structured. And I think when you're very structured self-talking, it becomes much easier for you to deal with the circumstances you're dealing with, right? Or the circumstances you are in. If you pick up the sustainability pillars, what we're talking about is a human, let's say people, profits, planet, right? But profits, let's say purpose. It's nowadays it's more towards purpose, because with people and planet, it becomes more of a purpose than just remaining it as profit, right? And in your self-talk, can we include all of these aspects? which can give you a completely different worldview. And your thinking may change from a very microspective to an extremely it's like this is a very it's a universe, and then there are multiple galaxies, and then I'm there as part of one, and there are these planets, and out of that one planet, and in planet I'm in some country, and at the end of it there is a small spot even you see in your Google, and then I'm in that little house, and I think I'm very big in that little house. You see, the perspective changes. Do I want to continue that way, or do I want to say that I'm just a speck, just a small, tiny me? Nobody can even see me. And I think that brings in a lot of grounding, a lot of understanding that we are human and we have a purpose. And with the limited resource in this planet, how can I actually just not sustain my thoughts, my feelings, the way I want to live, the way I want to be joyful, the way I want to spread joy around me, just not limited to myself, but also to the system which I'm part of. So that's what came up.
So wonderful, Vinitha. It's like we tend to take ourselves way too seriously, and that's what I was talking about, the perfectionism piece, right? Like always wanting big, always thinking that it's always the other side that we'll get something. Not accepting ourselves as we are, and then knowing that the growth is going to happen from there.
Absolutely. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to feel that we are growing and we are moving and we are not stuck. We are agile and nimble.
Feels like we've come a full circle. We started with acceptance, and through this we've come back to acceptance.
That's right.
So Vinitha, you mentioned self-leadership skills, as a starting point. Could you elaborate a little, like what would self-leadership skills be?
So any leadership skill, what we pick up, right? Let's take emotional intelligence. Yeah. And how can I apply that for myself? Self-regulation is part of that. How can I actually just not display leadership skills everywhere else, but just, and not to me? So if you put a mirror back to yourself, these self-leadership, the leadership skills, what I carry, and all of us are leaders. We all have that element in us. If we focus, we can develop that, right? These are all competencies, skills, whatever you call. These are all things which we learn from every instance we are in, every moment we are in, right? And the accumulation of all that learning is nothing but leadership skills. And I think all of these are carved out based on behavioral and based on observing certain behaviors. It's not that somebody has written a leadership skill journal and then we are all practicing that. No, these were all observed behaviors which were written down. So which means it's all there in us. It's about just taking it and putting it back, like an emotional intelligence, like self-regulation. How do I actually communicate to myself? Very simple. How am I communicating to myself? We focus so much on communicating to the external world. How am I communicating to myself? Am I having fun with myself? Am I being humorous to myself? Am I being compassionate to myself? So I guess those are the grounding principles in my mind in terms of what self-leadership skills can push your self-coaching ability.
One of the, I think, thoughts that came with Smita and with you, Vinitha, was around how self-talk can actually be structured. So could you maybe share an example of like what that could look like, for you? Let's say with an example, how would you structure it for yourself?
Okay, Smita, you want to take it? or
Sure, I can go and then you can join in. I think, Kiva, the thing about having that structured conversation, I would normally do the set process, right? Like the process that at Coacharya we follow. It is about checking with ourselves about the sensations that we are going through right now, what emotions, and then checking on with our own thoughts. I think that helps in grounding. And then with every conversation, if you know the if the dilemma is this, that, or to choose I have two options and I need to choose one. So it's always about checking in as to what would be meaningful for me. How will it serve me if I choose one over the other? Right. So always taking myself through those questions as to how is it serving me at the end, whatever the choice. With this process of checking on with myself on the sensation, emotions, and thoughts, I think it's wonderful when we are able to name our emotion. And like I always, say in the class as well, is to about when we are able to name an emotion, taming becomes easy. So name it to tame it. Somewhere the effect of the fly on the wall. So it's like you are observing your own self when you are naming those emotions, and then pausing for a bit and then dealing with it.
Love it. Name it to tame it. Wonderful.
Yeah. So let me just narrate something which happened with me, so that, and then I'll tell you a very simple model which we can pick up to do a self coaching. Yeah. Um, so when on my journey towards PCC, the last class of my ACC, and it was more about just winding up, and I wanted to go for my PCC class starting next, and I wanted to just do it straight, and of course I did it with Coacharya, right? So after my ACC, the last on that last class at 10 p.m. in the night, I wind up my class, and then I come back, and then I see my dad had fallen down having a stroke. Yeah. And I didn't know what to do. And it was like 18, 20 days of hospitalization, everything which was going on in my life. Then my PCC classes were starting the month after. And I wasn't too sure what to do. And I called my trainer and I told her, I don't know whether I can join in because this is what's going on. And there was such a learning curve for me as a caregiver, right? And so much, and I really wanted to invest time in coaching in because that's something which I really love to do. So the first thing what I did was I went back, and very kind of my trainer to tell me that you will have one spot booked for you, so that anytime you change your mind, please to come back. And Smita knows about that. So I went back and I started thinking about it, sitting in the hospital. What do I do here? What is actually acting as an event for me, right? So the event is my dad has been sick, and that's what is going on. And what is the belief I am having, right? The belief is around that I may not be able to manage my time. I may have to learn quite a lot as a caregiver, and I need to really build in those kind of resources. And then I thought about what can be the consequence, because I have this belief, right? The consequence is more about that my goals for the PCC is going to be delayed. I don't know when I'm going to finish my hours. I don't know how much I can focus on. I don't know how much I can really blend into the whole coaching hat and understand where to go. And that consequence was not something which I was really happy about. The moment I thought about it, there was like a heavy stone kept on my head, and I was feeling extremely nervous about it and extremely sad about it. More than being nervous, very, very sad about it. So I knew that was not the way forward. So I moved into another space called dispute that belief that I cannot do it. Dispute that belief that I won't have time. dispute that belief that I have to I have a learning curve which I have to pick up for as a caregiver. I won't be able to spend. And the new belief I brought in was that I don't know if there is another time. This is probably the time I have. I do not know when next, what next, whether I would be even there to experience this. And what would I do? It's just an opportunity for me to just see how I can pull myself together and do a better time management, focus on things, take one day at a time and not really think about the result. Yeah. And then I went on to really work on what I want to act, which is an effective way. I went back to Smita and my trainer and said, I'm joining my PCC. Right. And on one hand, when I was caregiving, on the other hand, I was attending my PCC. And then somewhere I could complete the number of required hours. And then I got certified. And my dad recovered on the other side very slowly. But, and when I think about it, it was a very structured thinking. And then later, when I looked at it, there were many models you could do, like a grow and not, but it's a very simple model, A, B, C, D, E. What is activating an event? What is your belief, which is creating that event, right? What is your consequence if you stick to that belief? How can you dispute that belief if at all you really want to dispute it? And what is an effective way around it to work? So that's something which has helped me, Kiva. Every time there is a challenge, I remind myself of this model and go to a very structured manner. And I guess that's yeah, helpful.
Wow, I think as you were sharing, Vinitha, and even when you spoke about SET, Smita, now with Vinitha, ABCDE, I got reminded of something that I discussed in our last coaching foundation class, which was I think that Nelson Mandela had said, which is I'm not saying it verbatim, but something around the longest distance that you travel is between your head and your heart.
Oh, yes.
And I think with this structured approach coming in, it kind of bridges that, So I think I'd like to go back to how we had started when Smita, you opened the conversation talking about acceptance, and then it came back again at a particular point. And I think this structure kind of becomes a tool. What I'm hearing is it's your guide, which actually helps in, bridging that gap, and I think paving the way forward towards sustainability. So I'm really curious to know, Vinitha, you mentioned right now that, once you discovered this model for yourself, so I was just sharing that, Vinitha, you've brought in this model that you think, that you discovered for yourself, and you've seen how it's something that you're applying, every time there's a challenge or like there's a dilemma that kind of plays out. So I want to know, like for both Smita and you, with this entire aspect of self-coaching, almost, like you said, becoming a self-talk to the structured approach of thinking, what has shifted for you?
It's a good question. I really like that. What has shifted for me? I keep thinking what has shifted for me. Sometimes I feel nothing has shifted. It's the same, right? But yeah, it's a very interesting question because it's making me really introspect and see what has really shifted. What has really shifted physically and, as a goal is that the goalpost has just moved from PCC to maybe an MCC or something like that, right? I'm talking about this particular context, but applying this model has always made me very curious about myself, and that's an element which I'm very stuck on to all the time. And I've been very curious about everything around me except myself, and that's what I realized. And these are things what every time I use this model, or I use even grow sometimes, right? And I'm not someone who's a really framework person. It doesn't stick to my head, right? So for something to stick to my head, it's very difficult. It just brought me to a state of flow, right? It's just, it's just that I really enjoyed being. I really don't think so much about what's going on, what's the pressure I should take, how do I build my coaching business, what do I do about it, how many clients do I have, what much money I make. I think it just kept me very grounded, and at least I feel that way. And I kind of, and like I was telling you just before the webinar started, right? The humor is all about having fun, and it's having fun with your own self, right? How much you can laugh at yourself and how much you can tell yourself, hey joker, what are you doing to yourself, right? So I think the shift is mainly in those aspects of being very light. Another shift, what I have definitely understood about this is sustainability or self-sustainability is not about adding, it is about subtracting. For me, when I say that, it means no is a sentence. It's a complete sentence. Ability to say no, being compassionate to yourself. And I think that's something which is, for me, has done this whole self-coaching has done.
Definitely something that I am going to try and do, like not add, but subtract.
Yeah.
No, so beautiful, beautiful, Vinitha. Smita?
I'm just reflecting to say what shifted, and the biggest thing, which shifted is acceptance of self. I think that was, I think before I was, even introduced to this world of coaching, I was always, kind of judging myself to saying something is missing, something is not there. I'm like this, I'm like that. I think the biggest shift is acceptance of who I am. And a deliberate attempt that I always make is the inner dialogue that I was talking about earlier. We were discussing that earlier, right? Always being mindful of what am I telling myself? Is the talk allowing me to move forward, or is the talk, pulling me down? This whole thing about the beautiful topic that we're discussing today about self-coaching to sustainability, and you were talking earlier, Kiva, about bridging. It is the bridging of the knowing and the doing. So I can be a lot self-aware about myself. What am I doing with my self-awareness? So I think these have been my some shifts that have happened. And another important thing is about patience. Vinitha, you were talking about your personal story, and I was just thinking about this is all about patience. It is a process, right? Why we say self-coaching may be solitary, right? Like you are doing your journaling, you're thinking about yourself. How do you deal with your situation that you're currently in? But self-coaching is quite a social one. We need the support of the ecosystem that we are in order to sustain. So I think the other important key, which is key for all of us, is about patience. It is a process. It takes time, and we just need to stay at it consistently.
Absolutely.
We have some interesting, very thoughtful comments in the chat box. Just reading a few out. Cynthia says, I like the idea of subtracting because it also relates to the riddance of the ego and all that entails in terms of accumulating material possessions. We have Joseph has shared, I like your comment, no is a complete sentence. Being able to say no while being compassionate to oneself. I would only add, and being compassionate to the person to whom I said no.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. And to that point, I think the whole idea of being compassionate, it just flows seamlessly. It just starts and it flows seamlessly, whether we direct it to ourselves, we direct it to the people around us, or who we are saying no to. I think we have to train ourselves to be compassionate, right? Practice it every time. Someone was mentioning earlier that anger is a problem. All of us have, right? And I think that's a universal problem for a lot of us. So, but yeah, what if I'm angry? Can that be replaced by a question? Let's ask, what is triggering that anger? What is the belief about that? Where is that coming from? What is the belief about that event which is activating anger in me? What's the consequence? Do I really enjoy that consequence? Do I really want that consequence? Am I really looking forward to something very different? And can I dispute it by changing my belief, changing my thoughts, changing what this event is triggering in me? How can I actually act on it, on that belief, change of belief? Work on it, work on it, work on it all the time. And growing is so beautiful. It's like the chrysalis, right? Just become a beautiful butterfly and just visualize it. It's so beautiful.
I'm reminded of a thought by Buddha on anger. So it goes like, he says that whenever you feel angry, imagine that you're holding a coal, a burning coal in your hand, and you're throwing it at someone. So when you're throwing it at someone, you're burning your hands first before it goes to someone else. So in the process of anger, what we are actually doing is harming ourselves the most. So as somebody shared, I think that was Jen, right?
Jennifer.
Was that Jen? Yeah.
Just mentioned, I misinterpret it as feeling threatened. That's a great awareness, I would say. It's a lovely start point.
I also really resonated with what Jennifer shared here. Patience with self is necessary for learning, and as I read that, I was also thinking about, like, when you're patient with yourself, I think that's when compassion for yourself starts coming in. And again, to the no question, in fact, it was this last week, I think, in a conversation, like, I also decided, like, I'm going to say no, like, when I'm tired, it's supposed to be a no. And I went through the same cycle of feeling guilty and, oh my God, let me just quickly reply to this. Oh my God, what am I doing? But I think, yes, there was a level of acceptance and self-compassion that when you subtract, as you were saying, Vinitha, you're not being bad. You're not, doing less when you subtract. In fact, I think you're giving yourself more and preparing yourself to be able to give more.
Absolutely.
So,
and with a lot of quality around it, right?
Yeah.
I think when we think about the no, so a few days back I posted this small quote which said FOMO, right? Like, we don't say no because there is a fear of missing out. And can we just now, just change that narrative and look it as JOMO, which is about the joy of missing out?
I love that. Yes.
Wow. Few more things coming up in our chat. You are your first priority. Remember that. I get super nice when I'm angry. Love that. JOMO.
And then my best friend always says, you are your first priority. Remember that. Sonali, that's profound.
Yeah. I think talking about narrative, another thought that emerged for me as we were discussing was that when we discuss, or when we try to work on ourselves, at times it initially could feel like, giving yourself so much importance, or like, making yourself the center of everything, versus just put yourself aside and just do the work you're supposed to do. The talk goes on, right? Don't make excuses, just go for it. It's just 10 more minutes, right? But when you actually pause, it's like your body, is telling you something else. Your mind is telling you something else. Your emotions are telling you something else, and quite the opposite many a times.
Okay, meanwhile, there is some comment here. I think as coaches, it is our duty to work on ourselves so as to be able to serve our clients. That is so, it's such a must. And I think a lot of this, while we are self-coaching also, we get prepared with our own selves, right? Like we're prepared as coaches, and that really helps us with the conversation with the other. Vinitha, we were talking about, acceptance. I think acceptance also reflects on the other.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, let's say one dimension of it, right? Gratitude. We talk about a lot of gratitude, right? How much of a gratitude do we have for our own self? And do we really tell that to ourselves? Right? Do I tell that to myself? Do you tell that to yourself? And the whole dimension of gratitude itself brings in a lot of acceptance. Another thing would be, am I really joyful? Am I really, living my life to the maximum possible way? Living every moment. And I think post-pandemic, we are all very sure of that. Our life is so brittle, yet humans are very strong instead of being brittle, right? So we have a very, we just connected with that small breath we all spoke about. End of it, when you asked, what do you do when you're nervous? Most of them said, breathe, deep breaths. Now, this breathing is something which we do not see, but yet we know that's what is actually connecting us to the entire universe. And the moment that's, if we just stop exhaling, more nervous, you know more exist, right? So just think how much of an awareness we have very subconsciously in terms of what is actually holding us together as humans. And I guess the moment we are so aware of it, it becomes very sustainable in nature for us to understand that I am brittle, yet I am so stronger as a human. I can do many things, but it's beautiful to just move on with a sustainable thinking of what I can carry on day after day to make my life very joyful. Yeah.
How do we nurture sustainability?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I
Caring
think,
for a child.
yeah, sorry.
It's like caring for a child.
Yeah. And that definitely starts with self-awareness. So, and I like what, Jen has again written there. Emotion and body response is important for investigation and nurturing.
Investigation.
That's so beautiful.
Yes. Your somatic experience, basically. How is that you are noticing the changes in you?
I'll put a link. Yeah, Kiva, please.
No, Smita, please go on. Sorry.
Go ahead. I was just, while I was just reading on sustainability and self-coaching, I came across this link, which was shared by my mentor, Ujwala. And it has some wonderful resources on self-coaching. I think if people here joining in can want to go through it.
But it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually,
So
as
I
you
think
find your self-coaching very beautifully, what that is all about. So it says it's a process of guiding our individual growth, development, particularly through periods of transition in both personal and professional realms.
I think it's been really insightful, Smita, Vinitha, just hearing how you have been on this process and the shifts that this process has actually created for you. So we're almost reaching the end of today's webinar. So it would be lovely to just hear maybe one thing that you think could be a good starting point, for anyone that could help them in this process. And I think as Smita and Vinita are sharing, would be great to also just hear from our participants on anything, any takeaway for you from this session, anything that you think you'd like to pick and go ahead with. So over to you, Vinita, Smita.
Yeah, it's like I hear that as twins, right? Vinitha, Smita. So I think today I did actually come very prepared with, I did a little bit of reading, and because of the nervousness, obviously, right? But I realize again and again and again, I think I just told you, Kiva, that the awareness which kicks in most of the times is that you're just in that moment, and you really don't want to miss that moment, right? There are many of them here, around 60 participants, I see, including us, who I do not see, who I do not know, who are joining from various parts of the world, and how each of them get touched, and how we all get touched with the mere presence is so beautiful. And I think that learning is something which I really want to carry forward. Second, what I also have picked up from today's conversation is mostly about keeping things short and simple for your own self. I don't know what that came up, but that's something which came up. I don't know what's the trigger.
Smita, what about you?
I think, what I learned from this conversation today is one about acceptance of self. And then about the self-coaching, it's really not a very big thing, right? It's about the small little things that we do every day. Right? Can we mind our own self-talk? And then that becomes a tool for sustenance. So with that thought, thank you so much, Kiva, for having us here. It's wonderful. Would love to hear your thoughts before we end the session.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you again, Smita and Vinita, for joining in, and for all our participants as well for such engaging thoughts and ideas. I think for me, there are two big takeaways. One definitely is how I perceive self-coaching. I think even when I came into the conversation, I was wondering, what this concept is going to be, and it looked really big, in my head. But I think both of you really simplified it, and I think what I'm leaving with is this simple line, which is, when I talk to myself, what is it that I'm telling myself? So I think self-talk is definitely one big takeaway for me. The second takeaway is the entire process actually starts with just exploration. What am I experiencing? What's going on? And it's just about looking within. So I think for me, definitely it's been very insightful. Thank you so much once again for your time and for all the insights and all the stories that you've shared. And a big thank you to all our participants for joining in. I hope you enjoyed our session today. And it's 10 o'clock, so
Kiva, can't hear you
now.
On a musical note. On a very musical note, we would end this session today. Sorry, Kiva, your voice was a bit, yeah.
I see. I apologize, everyone. I'm so sorry. It's just been pouring here, and
Right.
I think the session and the content helped me to not freak out when the internet went off.
Great.
All right. Thank you. Thank you,
everyone.
Vinitha.
Thanks, Kiva.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Bye, Kiva. Thank you.